The first time I met her, I remember thinking she didn't look like any teacher I'd ever had. Not in some dramatic way. She just had this calm, grounded energy that made the whole room feel different. Her name was Miss Hart. She walked into our history class halfway through September, holding a stack of folders to her chest, smiling like she already knew all of us. She wasn't loud. She didn't bark rules. She didn't try to act cool. She just started talking to us like we were actual people. And for some reason, that hit me. The first week she taught us, I started looking forward to our class. It wasn't the subject, history was never my thing. It was the way she made everything feel connected. She'd ask questions about our families, our neighborhoods, stuff happening around town. She'd point out old buildings and tell us what used to stand there decades ago. She talked like she wasn't just teaching a subject. She was giving warnings disguised as lessons. I didn't realize that until later. One afternoon, she gave us an unusual assignment. A thick packet of old-looking documents. Police notes. Newspaper clippings. A couple of letters with names blacked out. Most teachers would never give something like that. It felt like classified stuff. Something meant for adults. She said we were supposed to write an analysis of how information changes when it goes through official channels. Those were her exact words. Before the bell rang, she paused at my desk and rested her hand on the edge. Just for a second. She told me quietly, "If anything seems out of place, don't ignore it." Then she straightened up and dismissed the class like nothing happened. I spent the weekend digging through that packet, trying to make sense of the pieces. So much of it was censored. A memo about a staff investigation from years ago. A strange reference to restricted rooms. A list of student names with 3 of them crossed out. Nothing fit together. But I did the assignment the best I could. Monday morning, she took our packets and told us she'd have them graded by Wednesday. But Wednesday came, and she didn't. When I walked into class, a different teacher was sitting at her desk. A man I'd never seen before. He introduced himself as our long-term substitute. No explanation. No mention of her being sick or transferred. Nothing. At first, everyone shrugged it off. Teachers disappear all the time, maternity leave, family issues, sudden resignations. I assumed she'd left an email or note. After class, I walked to the main office to ask where she'd gone so we could send her something. A card, maybe. Something simple. The secretary looked at me like I was speaking a different language. "Who?" she asked. "Miss Hart," I repeated. "History teacher. Room 214. She shook her head. "We don't have a teacher by that name." I actually laughed, thinking she misheard me. But she didn't smile. She double-checked the staff list on her computer and turned the monitor so I could see. The last listed teacher for the course was the substitute. No one before him since the beginning of the school year. I told her that it wasn't possible. That we had a woman teaching us for almost a month. She repeated, slower this time, that no teacher named Hart had ever been employed there. By the time I walked out, my stomach was twisting itself into knots. I asked a few classmates if they thought it was weird. Most of them did. But some seemed confused, like they weren't even sure what her first name was. One girl even said, "Are you talking about that student teacher from last year?" No, she wasn't a student teacher. She was our teacher. I knew something was wrong when I got home and saw a missed call from an unknown number. The voicemail came in at 2:47 p.m., right when the school day ended. When I hit play, my hands went numb. It was her. Her voice was shaking, breath uneven, like she was scared and trying hard not to sound like it. She said my name first. Then she said, "Listen to me carefully. Whatever they tell you about me, it's not true. Do not trust anyone in the administration. Not a single one of them." There was a noise behind her. Something metallic. And then the message cut out abruptly. I replayed it 3 times before I could breathe normally. Everything inside me felt hollow. She didn't sound like someone who quit a job. She sounded like someone who was running from something. The next morning, I searched through my backpack and found the package she'd given us. The graded version. Except it wasn't graded. It was blank. My handwriting was gone. The entire thing was clean. Like I'd never written on it at all. But the strangest part? The date on the front had been changed. In her handwriting. And the new date was the day after she disappeared. I checked my classmates' packets too. Every one of them was blank. Every trace of our work, the work she collected before vanishing, had been erased. That day during lunch, I went to room 214. The substitute had stepped out. The door was unlocked. Her desk was completely empty. No papers. No pens. Not even dust outlines where her things used to sit. But when I reached under the drawer, my fingers brushed a piece of tape. She'd left something hidden. I peeled it loose, and a folded note fell into my hand. It was addressed to me in her handwriting. Inside, she had written just one line. "Don't let them clean you out too." My entire body went cold. I didn't understand what she meant by clean, but I had a feeling it wasn't about classrooms. After school, I tried calling the number from the voicemail. It didn't ring. It didn't go to voicemail. It just stopped instantly. Like the phone had been destroyed. Or shut off permanently. That night, I barely slept. I felt watched. Even in my own house. I kept replaying the way the secretary looked at me. Like she was forcing herself not to flinch. The way my classmates were already forgetting small details about her. The blank packets. The vanished records. By the time the sun came up, I'd made up my mind. If the school was trying this hard to erase her, I needed to find out why. And the only place to start was the one thing she told us to keep safe. The old documents she gave us. The ones full of names, secrets, and that one code that kept standing out. D214. The same number as her classroom. The same number that kept popping up everywhere I looked. When I woke up the next morning, I felt different, not braver, not calmer, just done pretending this was nothing. I kept replaying her note in my head. Don't let them clean you out too. It felt less like a warning, and more like a countdown. Whatever had happened to her, whatever the administration was doing to erase her, it wasn't finished. And if she'd singled me out, if she'd left me that voicemail, then maybe I was already caught up in it. I pulled out the documents she'd given us and laid them across my floor. Every page, every blacked out line, every memo with those weird codes. It looked like chaos at first, but the more I stared, the more pieces started forming a pattern. There were mentions of restricted spaces, containment preferences, and that repeating code D214. One memo even said, "Temporary holding approved until further review." But the date was completely scribbled out. At the bottom of one page, squeezed between redaction bars, I saw a single phrase. "Access by key only." My hand went straight to my backpack. That tiny key taped to the back of the Polaroid. The one I'd found hidden in the file room. I hadn't known what to make of it last night. But now, I had a sick feeling I did. I held it up against the silver lock on the classroom door later that morning and it matched perfectly whatever Miss Hart had been looking into, whatever she'd found, whatever the school was trying to erase. It was inside that room. I waited until the building started emptying after last period. Teachers were leaving. Custodians hadn't begun their rounds yet. And security patrolled mostly the front wing. I walked the long hallway toward 214. Every footstep echoing louder than it should have. I kept expecting someone to jump out. Or ask where I was going. But no one did. When I reached the door, my hand shook so badly I almost dropped the key. I forced myself to breathe, slid it into the lock, and turned. The door opened without a sound. The classroom was dark, except for the faint light leaking through the blinds. It looked normal at first. Rows of desks, a whiteboard, the same stale smell of old books. But there was a heavy wrongness in the air. Like the room remembered her. Even if the school pretended not to. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. Her desk was empty, like before. But the floorboards underneath looked odd. Slightly uneven, like they'd been shifted or replaced. I knelt down, ran my fingers along the seam, and one panel lifted slightly. I pulled it up. Beneath it wasn't dirt or insulation. It was a metal handle. My stomach clenched. I wrapped my fingers around the handle and lifted. A square section of floor opened upward, revealing a narrow staircase leading into darkness. A cold draft crawled up my spine. I knew instantly. This wasn't some old storage space. This wasn't part of normal school architecture. This was something hidden. Something secret. And something she had clearly found. I took out my phone, turned on the flashlight, and began to descend. The stairs led to a small concrete room, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, with a heavy steel door on the opposite wall. The air felt damp, old, like it hadn't been opened in a long time, or like it hadn't been opened by the right person. On the wall, smeared in faded marker, were 4 words. Keep out of records. My heart hammered so hard I felt lightheaded. I moved closer to the steel door and saw a keypad beside the handle. It wasn't a normal classroom lock. It was industrial. The type you'd see at a secure facility. But this keypad had scratches around the edges, like someone had tried to pry it open. I didn't know the code, but the top of the keypad had a thin layer of dust, except for 4 numbers that looked cleaner. 2, 1, 4, 0. My fingers trembled as I pressed them. The lock clicked. The steel door swung open. Inside was a narrow hallway, with shelves lining both sides. Metal racks filled with binders. Old boxes. Stacked files with dates stretching back decades. It was a hidden archive. A place the school didn't want anyone to see. I scanned the shelves until something caught my eye. A binder labeled with a faded sticker. Staff restricted H. My throat tightened. I pulled it down, hands shaking so badly the pages rustled like whispers. Inside were personnel documents, photos, evaluations. And then I saw it. Her file. Ms. Hart. A real one. Not erased. Not deleted. Not denied. Her full name. Her hire date. A photo that looked like it was taken maybe 10 years ago. Everything the school claimed didn't exist was right there. I flipped through the pages, trying to understand what she'd gotten herself into. Halfway through, stapled inside, was a handwritten incident report. Not typed. Handwritten. Subject: hard access restricted archive D214 without authorization. Subject: aware of containment. Immediate removal recommended. Erase personnel presence. Neutralization pending. My vision blurred for a second. Neutralization. Not suspension. Not termination. Neutralization. I felt a wave of nausea hit me. I had to put my hand on the shelf to steady myself. She hadn't been fired. She hadn't been transferred. She'd been what? Taken? Silenced? Eliminated? My phone buzzed in my pocket, nearly making me scream. The sound echoed off the concrete. I looked at the screen. Unknown number calling. The same number from her voicemail. I answered with my heart in my throat. All I heard at first was breathing. Sharp. Panicked. Then a voice. Broken. Weak. But unmistakably hers. They're in the room. Get out. The call dropped. I froze. Footsteps. Above me. Fast. Heavy. More than one person. I shoved her file under my hoodie. Sprinted back through the archive. Slammed the steel door. And raced up the stairs. As soon as I pushed the classroom door open, I saw shadows at the far end of the hallway. 2 adults in dark clothing. Walking fast. Looking directly toward me. I ran. My footsteps pounded through the hall. I turned corners blindly, hearing them behind me, calling out to stop. Their voices cold and controlled. I burst out through a side exit into the parking lot, cutting across the grass, not stopping until I reached the street. By the time I got home, my hands were numb, and my throat burned from breathing so hard. That night, I opened the file again, praying I'd misread something, that there was some harmless explanation. But every line confirmed the same thing. She found something she wasn't supposed to, and the school was willing to erase her completely, to keep it hidden. I didn't sleep. I sat awake until sunrise. I don't know where she is now. I don't know if she's still alive. But I know this. Every trace of her is gone. Wiped from systems. Wiped from public records. Wiped from the school building itself. Except for the things she put directly in my hands. Her warning. Her documents. Her disappearance. And the file I took. The one they will absolutely know is missing. Maybe they'll come for me next. Maybe they're watching already. But if they think I'm going to stay quiet the way she did, they're wrong. She tried to expose something. She left enough for me to finish what she started. And I will. No matter what they erased. I remember her.